What you don't know can hurt you, and what you do know can set you free. That's why we interview subject matter experts for your small to medium-sized business and personal finances, because knowledge is power, but experience is everything. Welcome to The Tipping Point. The Tipping Point is brought to you in part by Tirani and Velez LLP, your tax and accounting subject matter experts. Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm your host, Gabriel Velez. Our guest today is Rick Girard, CEO of Stride Search and host of the Higher Power Radio Show. Stride Search is a retained search firm that champions a proprietary process for recruiting high-caliber talent. And the Higher Power Radio Show is a nationally distributed podcast aimed at improving the knowledge base of expanding companies as it pertains to hiring. Welcome to the show, Rick.
Thank you for having me, Gabe. I'm stoked to be here.
This is awesome. So I want to kick off this podcast by asking you a loaded question. What is the secret to passive engagement?
So for me, the secret to passive engagement, and let's maybe back up a little bit and define what passive engagement is, because we have a really low unemployment market and it's hard to find talent, as most people are experiencing right now. I get a lot of calls from CEOs where they're saying, well, should it really take this long to fill a position right now? And the answer is yes, because not a lot of people are out there looking. So passive talent are people who are engaged in jobs, they're working, they're not necessarily happy, or there's something that's lacking in their current role because, quite frankly, job dissatisfaction's at an all-time high right now. So that being said, they're open to hearing about things, but it's got to be something that really advances their career or does something for them personally and professionally above and beyond what you're offering.
Okay.
And so you have a lot of people right now that are kind of sitting on the sidelines, especially they're all in holiday mode right now since it's December.
Right.
So it requires a lot more care in conversation. It requires a lot more reach out and a different style of messaging, because what's happening is that there's a lot of recruiting that's going on and it's the same message over and over and over again from every other company. And it usually goes something like, hey, I found you on LinkedIn. Your profile looks great for a new job that I have at my company. Would love to talk to you about it. Well, when you're talking about the secret to engaging passive talent, really, how am I answering that question, which is, what's in it for me? What's in it for them? The problem is that you're not. It's a selfish approach to recruiting, and it's just a different market right now. Candidates don't give a crap about your company. They don't care about how cool you are or whether or not you go bowling on Thursdays and provide free lunch, because everybody else is doing it. So all this information is just a commodity.
Okay. Yeah.
So everybody's trying to use perks like, benefits and bowling and foosball tables. And they're still kind of gravitating toward that as something that's going to engage somebody or get somebody interested in the company. But again, those are all perks. They're not really engaging, or they're not really addressing the thing that's most important to that person, which is them. Like if I call you up, what's more important to you or me?
Well, obviously me.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm not solving a problem for you, or at least identifying a problem and helping to solve it, then why would you want to talk to me? Because you're busy working.
Right. So are you saying, what is it that the talent out there is looking for? Are they looking for fulfillment? Are they looking for an increase in pay? Is it, if you could make a blanket assessment?
Yeah. So in general, what I found is through our work and a lot of people that we contact, again, it takes a while and a lot of messaging to get somebody to even respond to you right now. Just in that messaging, you want to be as creative as possible and try and do something that's different than your competitors. If you're sending the same exact message as everybody else, you're not serving them, and they're just, again, you're going to be ignored. There's just an information overload that's going on. But when you do get somebody on the line, don't make it transactional. And what I mean by that is, hey, let me tell you about my job. Let me tell you about my company. Let me tell you why it's so great to work here.
Yeah.
um, that has nothing to do with you. You don't care. I mean, you might hit on some things that are interesting, but you don't know. So, jumping back to your question, what are the three things there's like three or four things. Compensation, surprisingly, is like the lowest on the list, unless somebody's grossly underpaid. But growth is probably the number one thing that I see in everybody that I have a conversation with. And I usually open up with this simple question, which is what's happening in your current role that has you open to hearing about something potentially stronger. Now, all I'm doing is I'm just trying to get a sense from them as to why they're talking to me.
Yeah.
There's got to be, everybody's got some sort of pain point, some sort of career wound, right?
Yeah.
So if I can find that, and if they have one and it makes sense for us to continue talking, then great. If they don't, then guess what? I can set the groundwork for a relationship that I can cultivate later on down the road. And maybe 6-8 months, a year from now, that person will remember me and contact me later. So you want to focus in on building kind of talent pipelines. So growth is the number one thing that I see. The number two thing is leadership. Issues with their boss, their manager. It's always a manager as opposed to a leader, right?
Okay.
So again, if you can kind of solve that problem, if you've got great leadership, these are things that you can key in on your messaging to get somebody to at least pay attention to you. And then third for me is usually the content of the work. So if you've got somebody who's been in a job for a long time and they're doing the same thing over and over and over again, it's kind of repetitive and they're not able to grow or really expand their skill set, people get bored and they want to move on, especially today.
Yeah. Is that necessary? Okay. So trying to determine where that, potential employee wants to be, in the short term, long term, you can only look down the pipeline so far, right? People's lives change and maybe they'll want to leave your organization later on, but at their state of mind right now, when you're trying to recruit them, what their current goal is, what would bring them fulfillment, and starting the conversation from there and then progressing.
Yeah. I mean, what's more important really is that if you're going to pull somebody out of their job or somebody's already embedded and they're used to being there, you want to be able to provide them a path to where they're looking to go.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't do that, you just have to be honest and tell them that. The biggest mistake I see with a lot of employers is like they lock in on somebody's skills and they have a need that needs to be filled. They have a hole there. They have work that needs to get done. And so they just throw dollars at it in the hopes that person's going to work out. Hope's not a good strategy. I remember, what was it? Grumpy Old Man. You remember Burgess Meredith? He was like in Rocky. I think it was Rocky or Grumpy Old Man. He said this thing. He's like, you can hope in one hand and crap in the other and see which one gets filled up first.
Yeah.
Which is, it's the greatest line ever, right? Like, so if you
hope is not a strategy, right?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. But if you want to bring people on and have people are going to be there for a while, you want to have employee retention. Everybody's got problems with that right now. You don't have retention because you're not providing a growth path. You're not providing what's important to that person. It's got to be individualized. It's not a general, here's what we're going to have. Because what motivates you doesn't necessarily motivate me. And what motivates 3 of your employees out there, I mean, it could be time off. It could be, you've got to really take an individual approach to the human as opposed to, what you think might work.
Yeah. Okay. So filling the pipeline. So, when I think pipeline, I think just an overall marketing strategy, right? So like, I think every company understands that they need a pipeline for bringing in new clients, and then taking a similar approach as far as it goes to recruiting talent is having a continuous pipeline. What's the first step in pipeline in establishing a marketing strategy is figuring out exactly what you're looking for, I think. Right. So like what
planning,
so what does that individual look like? What does your sandbox look like? I think that's the focus of marketing first, so if you have a position that needs filling, right? What are the hard and soft skills that need to fill that, and then going out and having conversations with people and worrying about, what's in it for them.
Yeah. Well, I think the hard skills can always be learned, right?
Yeah.
So if you're looking for somebody who's got 5 years of X, and you're holding a hard line to that, and that's where you're basing most of your hiring decision, you're doing yourself a huge disservice because people want to grow. So if I'm asking you to come to my company and do the same job that you're doing in your current company, what do I have to offer you? Well, more money. That's all I can offer you.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the only thing that's the only leverage I might have. So again, now you get this continuing issue that somebody else has a fatter wallet than you do.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's going to end up is somebody else comes and offers more money.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
You're gone. So you've got to be able to provide more. In the planning stage, you need to start thinking strategically about, okay, like what does our hiring look like? We don't have a need for this right now, but we do need, we're going to grow that way. So we need to start developing relationships and developing content in and around driving these people to us or having them follow us or knowing who we are so that we make a phone call to that person, they take our call.
Yeah.
I think recruiting needs to be, from an in-house perspective, needs to be treated a lot more like a sales and marketing function as opposed to a reactory, just get people in and hope that they take your job function.
Yeah.
And that's going to make all the difference in the world. When you build pipelines and you have like a consistent flow of a well or a talent pool that you can pull from, then it creates a situation where you're always growing and you're not declining. And you can always hire up. You give yourself so many more options.
Hire up, like bring in people that you don't necessarily need.
You might not need them, but you can find a place for them, or like you bring somebody on, and if somebody's not performing as well as they should be, and you've worked through it, and you've got somebody who can kind of elevate the performance within the company.
Yeah, that's kind of a unique perspective. Although, in the small business world, anyways, which is where I hang my hat for the most part.
We all play in that.
Yeah. It's like so busy trying to kind of bootstrap things and like lead with what it is we're trying to do, as opposed to leading with who, which is probably the better strategy, right? If you bring in the talent and they're truly talented, they can actually bring a lot of value and provide you with more ideas so that you can expand your business better if you're willing to make that investment ahead of time.
Yeah. I mean, look, your employees want to do well. Like, people don't take a job and not want to do well at it.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So if you are able to give them a path, and if you're able to actually put them in a position where, like, again, I think another thing that I would add to this is like continuous education or making sure that people are getting training and they're growing. I had a CEO on my show not too long ago, and he was saying that, like, my job has shifted from being like I'm a CEO, but I'm actually the champion of culture. Like, we have completely moved our environment to, like, my job is just to make sure the culture and growth are there for the individuals. And as a result, he's got like a 97% retention rate, and he's got great people. And, he said 90% of his company are all A players. I mean, so their year over year performance is, I think he said, like 230% revenue growth every year.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Like, it was great. Yeah. So he's done a great job of doing that, but he spends all of his time thinking about that, thinking about, okay, what does Joe need? What do we need to do to keep Joe? Okay, well, Joe needs some training here. Why don't we talk about how we can get him to take some classes or further his education? How can we get these people to keep optimizing their skills and want to stay?
Yeah. Well, I think retention strategy is probably a more efficient strategy than even recruiting, right?
But retention starts at the recruiting process.
Well, it starts at setting an expectation and following through on that expectation that you've provided to the employee.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but it starts in the interview process. The reason why I say that is because a lot of people, they'll go through an interview process, and a lot of information isn't shared. And so what ends up happening is they kind of think they're going into one thing.
Right.
And then once they start, they realize this isn't at all what I signed up for.
Yeah.
And then they bail within 90 days. And that happens quite often.
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to, when you talk about like preparing for what you're looking for, you really need to set performance metrics on what you expect each person in that role to accomplish in the first 90 days,
Yeah.
in the first 6 months, in the first year. Give them a roadmap in which they can thrive, rather than some obscure, like you're just going to come in and stamp widgets. I mean, you're going to start out stamping 50 widgets, and then we need you to go up to 100 widgets, and then we need you to do 500 a day by 3 months.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's better than, I don't know, just stamp widgets and we'll see how you do, and we'll let you know whether or not you do well.
Yeah.
High performing people, they do much better when they understand exactly what needs to be accomplished, and you give them the keys to do it.
Yeah, I think you're also giving some insight to the business owner there, right? So it's kind of a clue during the interview that if somebody has continuously known in prior roles what their goal was and how it is that they achieved it, that they're more likely to do it for your company.
Yeah.
As opposed to like talking about ambiguous, these skills. Oh, I'm a hard worker. I show up on time and things like that.
Yeah. Now you're digging into the interview process, which that's riddled with problems, because I think people have these. I think if you look at your first interview that you ever, like my first interview was at Burger King, and it was kind of like, so why do you want to work here? And I'm like, I don't know. I need a job. I'm 15.
Yeah.
I see companies that have like the same interview process as Burger King, right? Can you work these hours? Yeah, great. All right, where do you want to be in 5 years? I don't know. I'm 15, out of high school.
Right.
So, the interview process really needs to have some thought put behind it, so that you're gaining the evidence that you need to support whether or not somebody's going to be successful in your role.
Yeah. Okay. Let's steer away from the interview process, because
cool.
That might be a whole other show in its own.
All right, sign me up.
So going back to the recruiting process and this overall marketing strategy.
Yep.
How is it that you fill the pipeline? Like, where are these people coming from? Are you marketing social media? Are you going to trade shows? Are you harvesting people in your network? What is the way that you fill that pipeline?
So if I'm an entrepreneur or a small business owner, I need to make sure that I'm maintaining my network and my referral base first.
Mm-hmm.
But when I say but when you're going through your referral base, because that's usually your best source of people, you want to do it in such a way where you're kind of building a stable of names and people that you can cultivate a relationship with. So that, again, you might not need them now, but you may need them later.
Yeah.
You need to do things that but that being said, and sorry to go back to the interview process, but make sure that you vet people properly. Because somebody will say, my friend John, he's really good. I hear he's really good. I don't, he's looking for a job right now. And then you kind of shortcut things thinking, okay, well, this guy's been referred in.
Right.
And it ends up being a disaster.
Big no-no, yeah.
Yeah, so just put thought process into it. As far as building that pipeline, I use sourcing tools and recruiting tools and a database that I have that kind of moves me through a pipeline, just because that's my business.
Right.
But at the very least, you can keep a spreadsheet, like an Excel spreadsheet of like, hey, here's marketing people that I know are good. Here's salespeople that I know are good. Here's engineering people that I know are good. And just kind of keep their name and number, and maybe even get them on a mailing list. If you're big enough to have a marketing department, I try to involve with my clients, myself with the marketing department, because they're the ones who are strong on the messaging, right?
Yeah.
So if I can get them to help me out with content and get the employer kind of brand down in alignment with the company brand, and be able to send content to those people, that keeps them engaged with me. So, the world has changed. It's not about really, posting your job out there, and you're not going to get good people. You're going to get people who are actively looking for a job. You may get lucky and get somebody who's really good,
yeah,
who responded through a job board or what have you. But I think that's an anomaly.
There's no way to do it consistently.
Yeah. And when you do post on job boards, and then you got to filter through like 300 resumes of people who are like completely off base, and it just eats up a lot more of your time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take a targeted approach of people that, even people that that are good, maybe you find their LinkedIn profile and you just kind of copy and paste that, connect up with them, share content with them, do it in a very kind of in-your-face sort of way, and get them to know who you are. And, they'll think of you first when they decide that it's time to move, because everybody's going to be in transition at some point.
Yeah.
Just the nature of the world.
Yeah.
Except for you and I, we're stuck in our companies.
Once you're a business owner, right? Yeah. Yeah. You die on your sword. So
yeah, totally.
So to speak, so, but
Bushido code.
Yeah. Should I bring out the book next door? No.
Yeah.
All right. And if you don't have that network, or even if you do have that network, bringing in recruiters as yourself, right? Because you do have that database, and you're filling specific needs. You probably have a database filled with like very specific industry people.
So I do, but the interesting thing that you have to kind of realize about recruiting is that, sure, you can have a million candidates in a database. Doesn't mean you really have access or relationships with those people.
Right.
Right. They might have sent their resume to you 2 or 3 years ago. They're going to take your call. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So every search is kind of unique, and the criteria of each search, like I could have a bunch of people who have those skills, but really what's more important is whether or not somebody fits culturally. That's what makes an A player within a company, is somebody who fits into the directive of the company, who fits culturally, who brings new ideas, who brings maybe diversity, and who brings something more to the table that elevates the performance within an organization.
Yeah. Well, there's no way to know that ahead of time. You
can look for evidence.
Okay.
Past performance is a key indicator of future performance.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back to the interview process, but like in the interview process, if you do it right, you should be able to extract evidence of how they fit your culture, how they fit, kind of the skills. You want to look for some sort of growth room, but then you want to gain evidence as to the impact that they've had in one of their former organizations. Because people take jobs all the time. They might have like killed it at one job and they were just amazing, and then they took a job that wasn't really like good for their career.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't maybe do so well. So you want to just go back through their history and really find out where they hit the cover off the ball, or whether or not they just have been somebody who just sat in a seat and pushed buttons their whole career.
Yeah. So, okay, talking about cultural fit, right? So
Mm-hmm.
A culture is, cohesive, right? So even though you have multiple different positions that might need different skill sets or different, experiences, the cultural fit is really the thing that binds everybody together.
Well, the culture is you as the owner, right? I mean, you set the stage.
Well, the culture is everybody. I mean, it's not just me. I set the stage for it. Sure. Yeah. There's an expectation there, but I can be overpowered.
But it's top down.
Yeah.
But it's top down.
Setting the tone.
Yeah. And it's funny. Like I see a disconnect a lot of times between leadership and the rest of the organization, where, they have words on a wall that are like, cohesiveness and collaboration and love and joy and no assholes and whatever else. Right.
Yeah.
And you go in and like, it's a completely different environment than that. So you have to kind of keep your eyes open to what your culture really is, or even ask your people, like, how would you define our culture? And have them as a working session figure out like, okay, what are the best ways to categorize what our company is like,
mm-hmm.
what our company is about? And they're going to be more accurate than you are. And I say this often on my show, like if you have a culture full of like bloodthirsty assholes who just want to make money, then own it and continue with it. Don't try and say like we're a harmonious environment and we foster collaboration.
No,
you're going to come here, you get stabbed in the back. You just be cool with it.
Yeah.
And if that's what it is, right? So, and I find it always stems from the top down. Leadership sets the culture. So if you're a really hard-nosed CEO and your whole thing is like command and control, you're going to have an organization like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which again is okay. just don't expect you keep your people too long if you've got the wrong people in the seat.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not fostering growth, I'm going to steal them out. I'm just saying.
Someone is. Yeah.
Somebody will.
They're going to better fulfillment there. Okay. How about like fostering, your current employees as a source to fill pipeline? Do you find that effective, or do you find that as kind of detrimental to?
No, I find it
process?
highly effective. So here's the thing: you just have to be careful of. You don't want to continue to have like carbon copies of the same person. If your company starts to turn into a little bit of a fraternity in a certain area, that's not a good thing. I mean, you really do want to make sure that you're continuing to spark innovation and drive the culture forward, and pulling in people who can add to the culture in a different light, or might be different. Again, putting in the thought process behind that is key if you want to grow the organization.
Yeah.
I think that the nice thing that comes out of the whole diversity and inclusion thing is that it does foster growth. If you have people from different backgrounds and mindsets that are coming in to work on problems and they can truly collaborate, they can produce some amazing results. But you got to get everybody on the same page. And if you're the leader, you've got to really kind of foster that and grow it and make sure that you live it.
So part of what you do is, and from what I understand, is you go into organizations and you try to uncover the culture. So are there certain things in a person or in a culture that just are traits that won't work together? Like that's a red flag, and if you get somebody with a certain type of like a certain way of being, like I guess you were kind of talking about it previously.
So for example, like if you've got somebody who's been in a large company their whole life and they're used to a certain pace,
yeah,
and large budgets, and quite a few, like they're in the politics and all that comes with a large company, and they're used to that, they're probably not going to do as well in a startup environment where they have to move 10 times faster. They're going to have to work 7 days a week. They're going to have to really kind of wear a bunch of different hats. They don't have to, they're not going to be able to just stay in one lane and do that. Now, there's a caveat to that. There are people that have been in that environment that like feel they're stifled and they want to get out into that. But it's got to be something that person really wants out of their career. You can't manufacture that, and you can't coax people into that. So if you want to fail in your hiring process, go after the name brand person that like, oh, well, this guy comes out of Black & Decker, just pulling out of a hat, but like, they've done all this work and it's great. But if they don't really want to work in a startup and give you good reasons as to why they want to be in a startup and where they feel they can provide value and how they can do it, don't do it. Don't hire. That's just going to be a bad hire. It's going to be bad for everybody.
Yeah.
So, what you desire as a human, whatever you're trying to get out of your career, wherever you want to be, that's what's going to make that person successful, not your job. You're just providing the vehicle. Hey, here's my Ferrari or a Maserati, or my Bentley. Which one's going to get you there faster? Well, whichever one you prefer, really. And it's a personal preference. It has nothing to do with you, as a business owner. I would just, again, I would say, look at things from the perspective of like, what does this person really want out of their career, and am I the vehicle to get them there? It's a different way of looking at it from a employer perspective, because you just want to get your work done.
Right.
You just want to grow the company.
These are people. You have to understand that first, right?
Yeah.
They're people. They're
not hiring AI.
Exactly. Not yet.
I don't know if that's going to ever happen.
Yeah.
I've been hearing for years that AI is going to replace recruiting, and I still kind of laugh.
Yeah.
Maybe some recruiters, maybe some of the transactional components of it, but no. There's still a bit of a, whenever you're dealing with humans, there's a human element. You can't eliminate humans from human.
Right.
Can you? I don't know. Ooh, that's a philosophical discussion.
Yeah. And then
let's not go there.
Yeah. Okay. Let's not go there. Cool. Anything else on that side, on the like marketing and harvesting, a pipeline full of talent? that you can add?
Yeah. Okay. So, as a small business owner, I would say like, okay, first focus your efforts on referrals and people through your network, but vet them properly. Make sure that like you're in alignment with where they're looking to go. Second, keep a spreadsheet. I mean, just keep something simple that, if you got some time, which none of us do,
Yeah.
but if you have some time and you're like Sunday at 3 o'clock in the morning, you can't sleep, go on LinkedIn and find people out of your competitors and link up with them and start sending them content, like not recruiting content, but like just so they know who you are. Or like I find a really good source for talent are adjacent industries. So people who, not your direct competitors, but people who are somewhat sidelined where they use similar kind of methodologies and technology or whatever, right? And if you can give people an avenue out of those areas into whatever your specific I don't know, industry or domain is,
Yeah.
then that's growth for that person if that's important to them. So, there's people that love to kind of, they might work in healthcare for one role and then they go to finance and then, they're working within different stacks of technology or they're working within different mediums. I mean, doing marketing for, look for people who are like doing marketing in one area and they want to like, they have the ability to try something completely new. Right.
Yeah. And they'll bring a different perspective.
They will.
To solve that problem.
They will.
Yeah.
The biggest mistake I see a lot of companies do is like, well, again, hire somebody who's already in that role doing that. Like, there's no reason for them to perform. They're just going to plug and play their playbook in there. You should only be looking at them to bring forth like 25% of their playbook. Like everything they've learned, if they just use 25% of it and they're like completely off doing something totally new and they're learning, they're delving into it, that's what keeps people engaged.
Yeah.
But if I can just take all my documentation that I already have from company A and just plug it into your company, that's just called a consultant. You don't need to hire that person.
I was just about
full-time.
to say that they should start their own business at that point.
Exactly.
Because they have all the IP.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of it. I mean, you just, you want to kind of look at it from the perspective of like, I'd rather hire talented people that have a lot to learn on the skills side, like on the hard skills, but the soft skills are way more important today. People who challenge you, create innovation, who fit with you, but still kind of still challenge you to do better.
Yeah.
Right? Especially if growth is what you're looking for. I mean, you're hiring probably because you're looking to grow. You're probably not hiring. If you're hiring because you just got to fill a hole because somebody left, great. Then just ignore everything that I just said. Just go on Indeed and find people that way. But if you're hiring to grow your company, then do it in such a way that like is about your people and about like fostering their growth, because their growth is going to spur yours.
All right.
It's a mouthful, huh?
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, that's it, man.
All right, Rick, thanks for being on the show.
Absolutely.
How do people get a hold of you?
So let's see. You can reach me at www.stridesearch.com. STRIDESEARCH.com is my company. You can also check out my podcast, which is the Higher Power Radio Show, and it's Higher HIRE. It's not a religious show. And we broadcast live every Tuesday at noon, and then it's a podcast on Thursday.
Yeah.
And the premise for the show is to help entrepreneurs and business leaders provide them proven tactical solutions to help them win the right hire. So we bring on a guest every week, every month, who's doing kind of something, or every week, doing something a little bit different that's working for them in their hiring process. And we discuss that particular issue, and then we provide solutions. So we try to take a little bit more of a tactical approach to help you guys grow.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Rick. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me, man.